I think this is the first dedicated book review video on my channel. I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure that it is, and it deserves it. What is up, beautiful readers? It's Sky, and today we are here with a video that I'm so excited to make. We are going to be filming a book review on one of my topics of the year, and that is The Extraordinary Deaths of Mrs. Kipp by Sarah Brunsvold. If you didn't know, this book actually released this year, and this is Sarah's debut novel. Surprisingly, if this is her debut, I honestly cannot wait to see what else she's going to release in the future, because this book was amazing. So the way that I'm going to break this book down is I'm just going to kind of give a spoiler-free synopsis of the book, talk about some of my favorite parts. I'm pretty sure I can do chapters, so I'll have the chapters in the video, so you can kind of just skip to those points if you want to. I want to convince you to read this book, so stay in this video because I want you to read this book. Before we start talking about the book though, there's a verse that I want to read because it is so perfect for the overall theme of this book, and that is in Psalm chapter 16 verse 8, and it says, "I always let the Lord guide me, because he is at my right hand, I will not be shaken." It's such a perfect verse to kind of summarize the main theme of this book, and that is God is real, God is with you, and he wants to use you, no matter who you are. Saying that, I want to say that this book is about God and his willingness to use us to further the gospel and bring people to heaven. And when you think about the fact that the creator of the universe wants to use us to love people, to plant seeds in our heart, because we don't do the change, right? That's all God. But we have the opportunity to be used as vessels of the gospel to just influence and plant seeds in others for them to see, why are you so joyful? Why do you cling to this hope that is just so otherworldly when things around you are going to chaos? And so I think it's amazing how this book displays that and explains that in such a beautiful, heartwarming way. So if you don't know what this book is about, this book takes place in Kansas, and it follows two women, Aiden Kelly and Clara Kipp. Now, Aiden is a young up-and-coming journalist. She's kind of down on her luck a little bit. She's trying to find her path, find her way in her profession. And at the beginning of the novel, we kind of find her in a crossroads, right? She has that young, ambitious attitude, but at the same time, she needs a bit of life experience, humility, I guess you could say. And so Aiden is coming to a decision where she's trying to take a leap, take a risk, but she doesn't know if she should. And then Mrs. Kipp actually finds herself in a crossroads as well, because, and this isn't a spoiler, but at the beginning of the book, she finds out she's diagnosed with terminal cancer, severely terminal, to the point where she has a few weeks left to live. So at the beginning of the book, we are meeting her as she's moving into a hospice care facility. So yeah, two very different seasons of life for a young woman and an elderly woman, and the way that their lives cross paths is just something only God would do, and something that I've seen God do, not just for me, but for other people. The way that their stories come together is it's immaculate. So if I haven't convinced you to read this book by the premise alone, I will say that the characters are another reason why you should pick up this book. I mean, Mrs. Kipp is so focused on Jesus and people to the point where it challenged me to want to be better in that regard. And what I mean by that is she loved Jesus so much that she saw people as his children. I think sometimes, especially in America, we can get stuck in this rut of Christianity where we forget to look outside of ourselves and remember why we're a Christian. We are not a Christian just to check a box every day and go to church on Sunday. Like, there are people in the world, in our neighborhood, that God has placed us around to specifically love on. And all of us have a unique opportunity to do that, because I don't live in the same place as you, or work in the same job as you, or have the same friends as you. Like, we each have our own little communities that God has given us the opportunity to love and serve. And this book really made me think about what I do on a daily basis and how I can be better. And Mrs. Kipp was just such a beautiful example of what that could look like for someone who was truly dedicated and in love with Jesus. She loved Jesus wholeheartedly. And it's amazing because she wasn't like that before, and you learn more of her story as you read the book. And so just to see her journey from at the beginning of her, walk with God to the end, y'all, beautiful. And then to see her love for those other residents of the hospice center, to see her love for anybody she came in contact with, to see how her love for Jesus impacted Aiden when they crossed paths was just beautiful. And it honestly truly made me want to be better and seek the Lord more. And you couldn't ask for a better book than that. If a book like encourages you to grow deeper in your walk with God, to pray, to love others, like, that's a book that I want to read, and that's a book that you get from this. And so the characters alone, especially with Mrs. Kipp, amazing. Her friendships. I would say Aiden, even though her story may not have been as impactful as Mrs. Kipp, what's beautiful about Aiden's story is she was willing to put herself out there even if she didn't want to, because Aiden gets in these situations because of work, so it's not like she wanted to do it, but she was open. There were many times where you could tell she was hesitant. She was very uncomfortable in situations, which is understandable. I would have been uncomfortable, I think, especially with some situations that happened in the hospice care center. But to see her still there, she still went back, she was still somewhat open. She may not have felt it, but she was there. And I think that is the thing that I learned from Aiden, is that you push through the uncomfortableness when it comes to your faith, when it comes to your relationship with God, and most importantly, when it comes to loving other people. It's going to be uncomfortable at first. It's not going to be something that you're going to want to do, because it goes against everything that we are as a selfish, fleshly human, right? We want to preserve, we want to protect, we want to be comfortable. And a lot of times Jesus gets us outside of that and wants us to be uncomfortable, wants us to be open and willing to be vulnerable with people, because that's what he is with us. Jesus died for us. So we have to have the mindset of that when it comes to other people. We have to understand that Jesus wants us to love, and love wholly, no matter if we get anything from it or not. And so I think Aiden was cool because we kind of got to experience Mrs. Kipp through her eyes a little bit and see, wow, this woman is amazing. And then Aiden got to see it's not just because it's Mrs. Kipp, but it's because of Mrs. Kipp's love for God. So seeing Aiden experience God's love in relationship with Mrs. Kipp through her eyes was great. And I loved that, because you kind of got to see both sides of the field, what it's like to be in a deep relationship with God, and then what it's like to witness that as someone who's kind of a closeted Christian, especially because she's in media. And don't even get me started on media today, right? I will also say, moving on from the characters, read this book for the faith content. You can't ever talk too much about Jesus, but this book is about Jesus. Like, the faith content that you're going to get in this book is top tier. It's top tier. You're going to pray while you read this book. You're going to think about your faith while you read this book. You're going to think about your closest relationships while you read this book. You're just going to be really challenged at your core to address your relationship with God. And I appreciate that. And I honestly have not felt that since I've read Voice of the Wind, because seeing Hadassah do the same thing with Marcus and Julia and the whole family that she served in Rome did that for me. And that is what I got from this. And it just was so beautiful, so beautiful. So yes, the faith content is amazing. If you're looking for a book, I would say even if you're not a Christian, because yes, I'm a Christian and I love Jesus with all of my heart, but I would recommend this book for everyone because it shows the realness of being a human, but also the amazing blessing it is to be a human. Yes, sin sucks and cancer sucks and life experiences suck and losing loved ones sucks, but seeing how humans can find resolve and still love and still serve others through all of the things that we go through in life is just one of the things that I think being a human is so precious about, and something that I love humanity for, because we all are just trying to figure this out together. And this really just highlighted the real raw journey of a human being and how God can change the trajectory of your life. Because I don't think Mrs. Kipp would have been herself without God. I don't think she would have gone through the grief that she experienced in her life the way she did without God. So if you're not a Christian, really just think about what you're reading. Question it. Question God. Question what you're reading. Why? Why would she think this way? Why is she loving people? Why isn't she angry? Why isn't she this? Why is she that? Really question it. Seriously, I don't want people to come into Christianity thinking that you're going to have all the answers. Your life's going to be this clean slate. There's going to be rainbows, unicorns, sunshines, because honey, that is not true. But if you're coming into this book and you're not a Christian, I'm glad you're reading it, but also really analyze the faith aspect, really analyze Jesus and Mrs. Kipp and their relationship and what's going on, because I think you'll really find some good things to think about and question and understand why God is alive and why he loves you, because he does. I don't think that only Christians should read this book. I don't think that's the case with any book. I think anyone can read it, but this is a great alternative to everything else that's being read on BookTube and Instagram and all that stuff. I want this book to be as popular as a Colleen Hoover or a Tessa Bailey. And the great thing about this book is there was no romance. There was none. And it's just funny how my mind would go to I wonder if Aiden is going to fall in love with somebody. I wonder if this, I wonder if that. And it's why does everything have to be involved around a romance? Why can't you just experience a good story? Because Voice of the Wind still had a romance aspect, but to be fair, it wasn't the main focus of the story. But I just love how the romance, honestly, the romance was Jesus. And that, sign me up. Sign me up. So you have good premise, good characters, good faith content, and honestly, you'll just fly through this book. It reads really well. You just get so immersed in the story. I cannot rave about this book enough, and I really want all of you to pick this up and to give the extraordinary deaths of Mrs. Kipp a chance. I promise you, it will just make you appreciate humanity for what it is and God for who he is. So the next part, it's not going to be spoiler again, I promise. I just want you to hear how God pops off the page in this book. And so I actually annotated this, right? Thoroughly. And then the top on here are all of the parts that I just loved. And so every 50 pages too, I was writing down what happened, what I thought, what I was questioning, what I was learning, because this book really had me thinking, right? So every 50 pages I had this coral post-it note, and I was just gushing about this book. And I might do a little flip through cutaway, but listen to this, because this is when Mrs. Kipp first gets into the hospice facility, and she has this dream of dying in São Paulo in Brazil. And you learn why as you read the book, but of course she's in Kansas. She's not going to be able to die in São Paulo, Brazil. Let's just not realistic. The doctor doesn't want her to leave the country because she's just going to progress so quickly the next few weeks. And so your heart already feels for Mrs. Kipp at the beginning of the book. But just listen to like how she thinks and processes the fact that she's not going to be able to get her dream even in death, and how she talks to God about that. Because when I read this, I was like, wow, I have a lot of work to do on myself. And so listen to this. Page 26. This is page 26. She closed her eyes and relaxed into the chair, as if the Lord himself had provided his lap on which she could rest. Without fail, he always found a way to comfort his beloved. Despite the broken dreams and the prayers yet unanswered, he was always up to something good, even if she couldn't see it. In fact, he did his best work in such times. Like, I'm tearing up just reading that. Like, what? Like, she literally did not even get the dream that she wanted in like her about to pass and dying. And like, she equated to sitting in the chair at the hospice center as sitting on his lap. I have no words. I have no words. Then, okay, listen to this. This is why Mrs. Kipp is just amazing. So now it's a couple of pages later. Listen to her prayer for the people at the hospice center. Lord, your world and your people are treasures to me. Thank you, God, for these gifts. Thank you for the staff here at Sacred Promise. Thank you for this place to shelter in your care. Show me how I can serve you today among these people. Amen. And then it follows with a sentence that says, the Lord never failed to answer a request for work to do. Like, I wish and hope that wherever I end up ending my life, whether I end up having cancer or like something, that like my attitude is so transfixed on Jesus that I am like praying for the people and the workers and the staff and praying for our opportunity to serve them in the midst of my like death. Like, what? Like, I'm just like, Jesus is just so radiant through Mrs. Kipp. But the thing is, that's what Jesus would do and has done with us, you know? And then listen to this, guys. I'm sorry. Like, I want you to read this book and listen to this quote about people and humanity, okay? You know what I've learned over the years, Charles? People can be the worst, but they can also be quite the adventure if you're willing to open yourself up and have the courage to stick with them. Some of the biggest blessings I've received have come because I chose to have such courage. It's a hard choice to make, don't get me wrong, but almost always the Lord has taught me more when I took the hard path with someone instead of the self-protective one. Are you kidding me? Like, I am like literally feeling myself like through this book, and I'm like, yes, this is what I needed to get over the hump, because it's so true. Like, we are self-protective sometimes when it comes to people we don't know and to strangers, and loving them in a Christ way is not self-protected. You probably will get hurt. So what? Like, you know? Listen to this, guys. I'm just going through quotes right now, but this quote says, Mrs. Kipp, again, of course, well, I'm not one to judge a lapse in personal devotions. Life has a way of stealing our attention for seasons. The good news is, though, we can find ourselves out of the Word always remains in us. It's so true. It's so true. And then I'm going to end with this, because honestly, there are so many quotes. I mean, I highlighted so many, but there's so many things I could share. But this one is so good. I did nothing amazing, Miss Kelly, she insisted. Despite what you've been told, I simply tried to love people as best I could for as long as I was privileged to be with them. We don't stay long in each other's lives. That's the crux of our humanness. You have to be the friend people need while they are there with you, because it's the only chance you'll get. Like, this book just... will you read it now? Are you going to read it now? That's all I want to know. Like, read the book. So yeah, that's kind of my review, my kind of gush over the extraordinary deaths of Mrs. Kipp. I don't even know if this video is coherent. I don't even know if, it made any sense, but I just pray that God's love and like what I wanted to say came across in this video, because it's so good. It's so good, and I want you to read it. So yeah, thank you guys so much for being here, for taking the time to watch this video. If you've read this book, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you think you're going to pick up this book now, let me know, because I want you to come back to this video and tell me about your experience reading this book. But that's going to be it. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for just watching the videos, liking them, leaving comments. It means a lot. I hope you have a fantastic day of reading wherever you find yourself in the world. God bless you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.